Liz, we got Rachel on the line here. What do you want to ask her?
How and where did you find your best performing assets?
You have to be patient to find the right deal. It can take months, it can take years. But my first duplex, it took us 9 months to find. That was after we put in offers on properties. That's after we had an accepted contract on another property that fell through. And my best advice is don't settle. Don't get discouraged. Don't get desperate for where you're willing to settle for something that's less than perfect. Because if you wait long enough and you're patient, something will come up. And that's the reason why all the other ones didn't work out.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. I'm super excited for today's show. It's one of our Ask the Expert episodes, and we have two amazing people on the line with us. We got Rachel Richards and Liz Benzschawel. So first, introduce you to Rachel. At the age of 27, and I think this is absolutely phenomenal, Rachel Richards quit her day job and retired. She's built up a passive income of $15,000 per month. She's a best-selling author of Money Honey and Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement. She's a former financial advisor and a real estate investor with 40 rental units. And by making the topic of money management fun, entertaining, and simple, she's helped thousands of millennials work their way out of financial despair. So that said, super impressive, Rachel. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So once again, very impressive. I wish I had, I'm just a couple years older than you. I'm not going to say how many, but that's what I'm working at right now is to get to that number. So I'm very impressed that at the ripe old age of 27, you've already got that built up. So
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and how multifamily plays a role in all of that?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Kentucky. I went to Center College. I studied financial economics, but I was a finance nerd well before that, and I still am today. So I was reading books even in middle school and high school, learning about, compound interest and stock market investing. But I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in high school, and that was my first exposure to real estate investing. I had always wanted to become financially independent, and at the time, that to me was the clear path to achieve it. I didn't find out until later that there's all these other different types of passive income streams you can build. So I was really set on real estate investing. I do think it's one of the best ways to build long-term wealth, and every young person should own rental property. In terms of multifamily specifically, my portfolio, it's kind of a variety. We actually have 2 single families, 1 duplex, and 3 buildings that are 10 to 12 units each. The single families we didn't intentionally buy. They were my husband and I's previous primary residences that we just kept and rented out. So I've always intentionally invested in multifamily. And that's for a few different reasons. Number one, it's because it's easier to weather the storm when you have multiple tenants and multiple units. So if you have a triplex and you have 3 tenants, if one tenant can't pay or whatever is happening, or it's vacant, then you still have 2 other tenants that can potentially cover the mortgage and still earn you a profit. So it just seems a little bit safer where you're diversified better. And then secondly, I think that I personally feel in my experience that multifamily is a little bit less volatile in terms of the overall stock market. I think single family can go up and down a lot more with recessions, with cyclical things that happen in the real estate market. But multifamily to me tends to hold its value more consistently because its value is more so based on its ability to produce income rather than, the physical value of the property. So if you can be producing income consistently, then it will hold its value well. So that's kind of my thoughts on why I wanted to get into multifamily.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, and I love all the benefits that it comes with as well. It's years and years of studies have shown that it is the most resilient class of real estate, over downturns and over the last several downturns. It's been the most resilient class of real estate. And one thing that's great is everybody needs to live somewhere. So we're providing a basic human need, which is awesome. So, So over the years, I mean, you've built up, actually over not very many years, you've built up a lot of passive income. What else is there in your portfolio, or how did you get from the finance nerd reading Rich Dad Poor Dad in high school to, 10 or 12 years later being where you're at?
Yeah. So my passive income journey began in 2017. Before that, my husband and I did not have any passive income, no other like side hustles or side incomes. We were both working full-time jobs. And something people ask me a lot is because I was able to scale from 0 to 40 units in 3 years.
Yeah.
So they're always like, "Are you a trust fund baby?" And so I always clarify, "No, I'm not a trust fund baby." I, in fact, never made six figures from a job or a salary. I was
Wow.
making $36,000 after I graduated from college. Part of the reason I could invest at a young age is because I didn't graduate with any college debt. So I paid my way through school. I didn't have my parents help me or anything. They were not able to help. I sold Cutco cutlery, actually, Cutco knives. Have you heard of Cutco?
I
Yeah.
think everybody has. One of my business
Yeah.
partners, cut his teeth on Cutco. So yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So I got my sales experience, paid my way through school, and graduated without debt. My husband is a veteran, so he used his military benefits to pay for his college education. So we both graduated without debt, which was a huge advantage for us because even though I was only making $36,000 at first, I was able to save half of my income.
Nice.
I was living off $1,500 a month my first year or 2 or 3 years after graduating from college. So even though I hardly made anything, I could still save, 5, 10, 15 grand a year to put towards a future rental property.
And
Go
here's the
ahead.
deal. People who make twice as much aren't able to save that much. So that by itself is absolutely amazing. Excuse me. You're able to live under your means and save a lot of that. So for anybody listening, that is an absolute key to being financially successful. So
Yeah. And just to expand on that point, Brian, I feel a lot of people think that wealth has to do with income, right? The more money you make, the richer you are. But somebody making 300 grand a year and spending 300 grand a year, they're not wealthy, they're broke, right? And then take another person making 36 grand and saving half of her income. Which situation would you rather be in? So wealth really has to do with how much of your income are you actually saving. So I just wanted to kind of expand on that because that's such a great point.
yeah, it's like the rich dad, poor dad point is measuring wealth in time, if I remember right. So
yes.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, we.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
So in 2017, my husband and I found this duplex that we wanted to invest in. It was great that we lived in Louisville, Kentucky at the time. That's where all of our rentals are located. It's a great place to invest, low cost of living, housing market is pretty reasonable. So this duplex we found was 100 grand. We each by then had enough in our savings that we each put 10 grand in to get to our 20% down payment. And that's kind of how we started with that. Now, later that year, I wrote and published my first best-selling book, Money Honey. And I had no idea that it would take off the way that it did, but it really started to bring in some meaningful revenue. And that was my first taste of, oh, there's actually other ways to create passive income outside of real estate investing. So for me, book royalties has been a huge one. I have 2 books now, and they bring in anywhere from 4 to 10 grand a month in profit from my book royalties. And then my third biggest passive income stream at this point is from my online courses. I have an online course called Get Your Financial Bleep Together. So it's a lot of fun. And I probably make 4 or 5 grand a month from that. It's all pre-recorded. So once I created it once, kind of same way of writing the book. Once you write the book, it's out there for the world to purchase and you can keep generating revenue off of it.
Nice.
So those are my 3 big ones that get me up to get us up to 15 grand a month in passive income.
Nice. I love that. And biggest lesson, biggest takeaway for me is, where you started. $36,000 a year annual income is not a lot. And I hear the excuse a lot, you have to have money to make money, and people with incomes a lot larger than you, like I said before, are having a hard time, doing what you did. And I think it's a testament to you. I mean, there's a lot of discipline that goes in that, and amazing, absolutely amazing. I do have one question from a personal interest standpoint. What branch of service was your husband in?
He was in the Navy.
Navy. Yeah, that's okay, I guess. But if you don't know, I'm active duty Marine Corps right now. I'll retire in July. So.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. But yeah, the GI benefit, when I heard you talk about the GI Bill benefit and him going to school for free, I think that's absolutely amazing. It's a great benefit to have, if you've served on active duty. But
Yeah, that
But
and the VA loan too.
oh yeah, did you use a VA loan for your one of your rental properties?
We were able to use them for both of our previous primary residences.
Nice.
So we still have them now. They're still
Mhm.
on the VA loan. So it turned into a really great benefit for us.
Yeah, the first rental property I bought was exactly the same. Bought it as a primary residence using the VA loan, and I had a VA loan on that property for 12 years. And yeah, I lived in there for less than a year, but the VA would just kept on letting me refinance, kept on letting me take advantage of it.
That's awesome.
Second one was an FHA loan. The same thing. You buy a house, live in it for a year, and move out, turn it into a rental. So
hmm
a lot of good stuff there. Well, that's great. So let me ask you a question. What's your big burning why or your motivation for all of this?
There's a few,
Mhm.
but the one that comes up the most consistently when I think back is what you have to know about me is that I grew up in a really wealthy county. It was
Mhm.
a really wealthy bubble, unrealistic to grow up in. And just to give you some context, a lot of the kids in my high school got brand new BMWs when they turned 16.
Yep.
My family was not operating that way. We weren't going on family trips, let alone even going out to eat at restaurants.
Mhm.
So money was a stressor often in my family. We were always on a strict budget. And I just remember feeling like I didn't fit in at a young
Mhm.
age. And that's not the way you want to feel in middle school and in high school.
Yeah.
So at some point, I thought to myself, I don't want to end up like everyone else struggling with money. I don't want to have to operate on a strict budget for the rest of my life or have to borrow money from family and friends to make it to my next paycheck.
Mhm.
I wanted to be different. And I realized that what I did then would either set me up for wealth or for poverty.
Mhm.
So that's part of my passion for learning so much and wanting to achieve financial independence and kind of having these fears around money growing up, that there's never enough money and money is a stressor, and I want to have enough money so that I'm financially independent, but so that I can also take care of my loved ones if they need
Mhm.
the financial support. So at the end of the day, that's really my deep down motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities. My parents moved to a kind of an upper middle class neighborhood. I don't know upper middle class, but my dad was a postal worker. So they didn't make a whole lot of money, and all of our neighbors were. We had a lot of doctors in our neighborhood. I grew up thinking we were poor, when we absolutely were not. We had everything we needed, but that's actually something that I think I started out with the same feelings. Like, I don't want to have the same money issues. I don't want to have to put my kids in the situation where all their friends are going skiing and they don't have money to pay for it. But that's definitely been part of my motivation as well. But anyway, good enough. So let's talk specifically about one of these apartment complexes that you've done. Can you tell us a little bit about how you went purchased it and the story behind it?
Yes, for sure. So I guess I'll talk about the fourth purchase we made,
Okay.
which was our first big building. It was the first building. I think it's 11 units. A lot of people, wonder how I scaled so quickly,
Hmm.
because coming up with 20% down payment over and over again, that's hard to do. A lot of people will use the Burr method and they'll
Yep.
refinance or whatever, find a hard money lender. Fortunately, my husband and I were able to keep coming up with these 20% down payments.
Hmm.
So we bought that first duplex in 2017. It was 100 grand. The next building we bought was at the very end of that year, and it was $400,000. So it was quite a jump.
It's a big jump.
It is, yes. And by then, by 2017, my husband was making six figures. It's
Hmm.
just that I wasn't. So we were trying to still save really aggressively, save 50% of our combined income, which
Hmm.
you can do the math, that adds up pretty fast.
Yep.
We were also completely saving the cash flow of every single rental property. So we weren't spending that money, we were saving that money to reinvest. But the third thing that allowed me to scale quickly is the fact that I had my real estate license. So I was actually a realtor in Kentucky. I never had clients. It was just for my own purposes as an investor.
Hmm.
That basically meant that every time we bought a property, we would deplete our savings, but then I would get a commission check back for thousands of dollars because I was representing myself as the buyer's agent on the deal. So it's not uncommon that I would get 3 grand or 6 grand or sometimes 10 or 12 grand after we closed on a property, and we would put that towards the next down payment. So that's how we kept coming up with money really quickly over and over again. But yeah, that next building, it was at the end of 2017. It was 11 units. It was about 400 grand. we were able to get a conventional 30-year fixed rate mortgage on that.
Mhm.
And so what else do you want to know about that one?
Well, it sounds interesting. I mean, so I love a couple of things about that. So, you're able to do all of the financing yourself. You didn't use other people's money besides bank loans at all on this, right?
Right, just besides the mortgages, we used
Yeah.
our own money for the down payments.
Okay. So when you went shopping for apartments, what were you specifically looking for, and what difficulties did you have finding it, I guess?
So I wasn't even specifically targeting apartments, but I
Mhm.
was looking for any multifamily where the numbers worked.
Okay.
One advantage of having my license is that I would often be the very first person to know if a deal
Mhm.
came up on the MLS,
Right.
right? Because often it is extremely hard, if not impossible, to find good deals on the MLS because that's where everyone goes. It's already
Mhm.
very competitive. But my license gave me just a slight time advantage.
Mhm.
I could be down at the property within 30 minutes of it being listed and making a verbal offer on the phone. So I actually found all of my deals through the MLS because I was pretty quick, pretty savvy.
Nice.
I found some deals that were, expired and canceled listings, and I would call the list agent over and over again, and then I would get a deal that way. But yeah, this one happened to come up. I saw the cash flow on it. I thought there's no way this building is producing this amount of money. And
Mhm.
so we went over and we saw it, and it was. And I think we were the first person to see it and make an offer. So we were just able to scoop it up. Got lucky on that one.
Right, right. So your realtor license kind of is one of the big keys in your success here, because you're able to find the properties before other people, able to make a quick offer on them before other people. And a lot of times first offer that comes in, if it's a reasonable offer, you're going to get accepted.
Yes.
And then you're able to, don't know if it's really double dipping, but you're able to take advantage of that realtor license and get the commission, which is about 3% of the purchase price.
Yeah.
And
And then you split that with your broker, but I always had like a really good split, 80-20 or something like
oh,
that.
nice. Yeah. So you're still getting 2.5% of the purchase price
Yep.
that's rolling straight back into your bank account because you were the buyer's agent on the deals. So that's awesome. Now, a lot of people who come on this show are syndicators with large unit counts, and I'll tell you what, I've got 485, but I don't own all 485. So something that I think a lot of people in my position would absolutely trade places with you to have 100%, you and your husband together. I don't know if it's a common law state or not, but 100% of 40 versus a small sliver of 500. But I think that's amazing, especially off of, the salaries that you guys had, and you just slowly built it up. A lot of people will use excuses of why they can't get there, and you and your husband found a way to, over and over again, put up large sums of money to buy real estate. So
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, when people look at my story, I know it sounds cool and it sounds impressive and it sounds even easy just
mhm.
looking at it on paper. But what people don't see is the 2 or 3 years of complete and utter sacrifice. And
Yeah,
just I've never worked harder in my life
yeah.
as I did between 2017 and 2019. I mean, we were both working full time already, 40 to 50-hour work weeks. We
Mhm.
were acquiring real estate on the weekends and managing our tenants, and I was writing a book in the evenings.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this trade-off of, do you want to work your butt off now so you can get yourself in an amazing financial position, or wait until later and maybe not be able to do those same things?
Yeah. But I add one more thing. It's not just working your butt off. It's working your butt off in a smart way, in a way that's actually going to produce the passive income. I think a lot of people kind of feel like they're on a hamster wheel, more often than not, where they're putting in all the effort, but they're not going anywhere. I think you did it very smartly, where you were putting all that effort into something that was going to pay you, passive returns for, as long as you own those properties, and as long as your books are selling, you're going to get that royalty. And as long as people are buying those classes, you put a lot of effort into building it, and now you're reaping rewards. So yeah, definitely appreciate all of that. And I think once again, I think it's amazing what you've been able to do. So,
Thank you. Thanks.
so what is next for you?
I'm one of those people that I always have 50 ideas and I get really excited because my passion is truly teaching women about finance and real estate investing. And so it's hard not to be a workaholic even in retirement, because this is what is fulfilling to me. So this year, I'm probably going to be launching a real estate investing course. My platform has told me they want more content about this. They want to know how I did it. So I'll probably be doing that. And I actually just launched a mastermind for women who want to create passive income. It's called Women on Fire. I filled up my 2020 class or 2021 class, but I'm starting to think ahead for 2022. So lots of exciting stuff.
Awesome. And if somebody listening wants to get more information on that, where do I send them?
Yes, go to moneyhoneyrachel.com and you can find info about that. And also, Brian, what I'd love to do for your listeners is if anyone wants to download my passive income starter kit for free, then you can go to moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus to download that.
Yep. And I actually went there last night. You mentioned that you'd bring that offer out, and I have not downloaded it yet. I've got the link in my email, and I just got to click and download. But
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So encourage everybody, and I'm going to put that in the show notes. So anybody who wants to take advantage of that bonus, worth the trade-off. Well, that said, we've got Liz on the line. Let's introduce her real quick. Liz's career path has been in sales, and she recently discovered a passion for real estate investing after purchasing a single-family home in Madison, Wisconsin. She partnered with her brother, who's also an electrician and has a construction background, and they're currently looking for multifamily value-add properties to purchase and to build their passive income so they can be like Rachel. So that said, Liz, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I got to say, Rachel, your part about your background, and I guess Brian, you too, that really hit home for me. I came up from a very similar background. I just wanted to say that really hit home when you guys were talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's being a parent now, it's one of those things that there's a lot of sacrifices that my parents made for us. And I think moving to that neighborhood where they were stretching just to be in the neighborhood has been a key factor in my life. I mean, we were living in not a great neighborhood before that, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely a sacrifice on their part, and it's paid off, I think, dozens of times over with, me and my siblings, but great.
Yeah.
So Liz, why don't you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So out of college, I started working for one of the largest beverage companies in the world in a leadership development program. From there, I got into outside sales, working in uniform rental sales, did that for about 6 years. And now I'm currently working in vaccines as a private account manager. So I work with large health systems in the Wisconsin area on the portfolio of vaccines they use for pediatric, adolescent, and adults. And then when I was 24 and I bought my first house, I started getting into rentals. So I started house hacking before I knew there was really a term for it. In my mind, it just made sense. Like, why not live with my good buddies and have them pay me a discounted rent to help me pay off my mortgage rather than having them pay to live in an apartment complex. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I just saw what it could do. I loved the fact of putting my hard-earned money to work for me basically while I sleep. And Rachel, another thing that you said that I loved was the amount of work that goes into it, because there's so much work up front, but once you have it in place, it's such a beautiful thing because you just get to collect on that. Yeah. So that's one thing that I loved about it. And then so this year I'm going to be purchasing a multifamily property with my brother. He also has single family rentals. So we were just kind of brainstorming and looking at how we could pool our capital to make a larger purchase. And what attracted us to it is, of course, the cash flow, being able to scale and roll that over into a new purchase, but the appreciation, and then also what you can get from cost segregation. So that's what really caught our attention to want to go down that road.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to it. I mean, the cash flow, the appreciation, the debt pay down, and I mean, it's hard not to look at the tax thing. I mean, we just in the last year, we've seen all the drama around the former President Trump's taxes and how he paid almost zero income tax. It's just one of those things where if you're heavily invested in real estate, you're not going to pay a lot of taxes, which is, I think, an awesome thing for, people who are trying to grow their wealth. You don't have
absolutely.
to pay that. So, well, that's great. So what's your big burning why? What motivates you for this?
I mean, I feel like I kind of touched on it earlier. It initially was family. I grew up seeing my parents sacrifice so much to give us what we had. And like I had mentioned, the school we went to, there are a lot of people that came from very wealthy backgrounds. So it was like, I was almost like a little bit, this is horrible because I had so much from my parents, but I was almost a little bit embarrassed having kids over to my house because they had these gorgeous mansions and we had this small little ranch. But my parents gave up so much to give us what we had. And so my mom was a teacher. My dad was a civil engineer for the city. And so like my mom being a teacher, she was very passionate. She was very good at it, but they make peanuts. And my dad was the breadwinner, and he was in a job where he was really unhappy and felt stuck because he prioritized providing for us over kind of going the route that he wanted to, that would make him happy. So I kind of saw that, and I wanted to have options. So I never felt stuck in what I was doing. I don't feel stuck in my W-2 now, but I like having options and backup plans. Yeah. So if I can put the money I've worked hard to earn to work to make more money for me, and then have other options in the future for my family and loved ones, like that's definitely my why.
Awesome. Yeah, I so much appreciate how you put that. It does give you options, and it does give you a great backup plan. But here comes my favorite part of the show. Liz, we got Rachel on the line here. What do you want to ask her?
Yeah, thank you. So I was wondering, one of the questions I had, how and where did you find your best performing assets? I know you mentioned the MLS earlier in the show, but I was just kind of curious, how was it just running numbers, seeing deals and running numbers that caught your attention, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I always tell people is you have to be patient to find the right deal. It can take months, it can take years. But my first duplex, it took us 9 months to find. That was after we put in offers on properties. That's after we had an accepted contract on another property that fell through. And my best advice is don't settle. Don't get discouraged. Don't get desperate for where you're willing to settle for something that's less than perfect. Because if you wait long enough and you're patient, something will come up. And that's the reason why all the other ones didn't work out. So for us, that was that duplex that we found in 2017, which also turns out to be one of our best investments that we own. For that one specifically, I was looking at, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I was looking at expired and canceled listings on the MLS. And I was just reaching out to the list agent to say, hey, what's up with this? Why is it expired? Is the seller going to put it on the market again? And I would just keep track. I would keep a spreadsheet of these, of any ones that looked like they had potential. And, once a month or once every other month, I would just reach out to that agent and be like, hey, I hope you've had a great month. I'm still interested. I'm here whenever your seller is ready. So it wasn't ever like an annoying email. It was just, I want to stay top of mind. That way, when it comes back on the market, maybe they'll tell me first. And that's exactly what happened with the duplex. That agent reached out to me. They said, hey, we're going to put this on the market soon. Would you want to make an offer first? Which is like a gold. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's how we got that one. And that's one of the best deals we have ever done.
Nice. And what a lot of people hear when they come on podcasts is they hear all the success stories. And I love how you said it took you a lot of time and a lot of offers in a contract that fell through. Just goes back to the amount of effort you said. You put in a ton of effort, I think 17 to 19 to get there. Awesome.
Yeah, I love that too. The two things I take away from it, not settling for less than perfect, because I feel like I really like that, because I feel like I've also heard just getting that first multifamily under your belt is what you need to do. But I feel like if I'm going to invest in it, I want to make sure I'm positioning myself as best I can to be successful. So I don't want to jump at anything just to do it. But I have heard that from other investors. So I like that, what you said. And then also the duplex, what I've seen is some people care about doors, but I mean, I care about cash flow. So it's like, I don't care what asset it is, as long as we can get cash flow from it and then grow. So I loved your points on that too.
Yeah, exactly. And to add to that, Liz, I'll say, don't underestimate the power of networking. I used to hate that term. I didn't want to network, but if you can just approach people with a genuine curiosity to learn more about how they found deals, how they're finding deals, how they became so successful, like most people are so open to that. So, joining your local real estate investors associations, joining local real estate investors meetups, just getting to know people in your area, that can open the door to being presented with a lot more off-market opportunities as well.
Yeah, I love that. And Brian, that's what got me here, was going on your meetup. So
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
Friday networking event,
Yeah.
which is awesome. We missed you. Were you on there today? I don't think you were on there today, were you?
no, I wasn't.
Oh.
Sorry. I usually try to make it every Friday at noon.
Yeah.
That's what time it is our time. So I
Yeah.
Well, I
usually
need to
try,
get in
but-
on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 p.m. Eastern time, noon o'clock Central time. Is that a real thing? We're going to go with noon
Yeah.
o'clock.
It is now.
Yeah.
We'll make it.
Totally
Yeah.
now. Oh, hey, Liz, one point for what you said, be patient and stick to your guns on that first deal still definitely applies. The first deal is a catalyst, but if the first deal is bombs or falls flat, it's going to be your last deal. So
Yeah.
what she
Right.
said applies 100% to getting that first deal.
Yeah. I love that. That's what I felt in my gut. So when I hear to do it, to get it under your belt, I was like, it doesn't seem right to me, but
Big asterisks on that one. You still
Yeah.
have to, it still has to be profitable.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
I'm
yeah.
not going to throw my money at a dump.
Yeah.
So another question I had is, what's something that you learned transitioning from single family homes to multifamily homes that you wish you would have known before starting the process?
I'm like smiling over here because I could list for hours the mistakes I made learning how to be a multifamily landlord.
Yeah.
One of the big ones for me is like, and I think for most real estate investors and people that are into finance, is this tendency to be super frugal, right? Most of the time, that's a really good thing, but there is such a thing as being too cheap and trying to cut corners. So this has to do with our property managers that we hired. And the mistake is that we tried to cut corners here. I always tell people, if you really want this to be a passive investment, you absolutely have to have a property manager in place. Even if you're going to start out self-managing like we did, make sure you can still afford a property manager and that the numbers will still work so that you can give yourself that option down the road. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when we hired our property managers, I'll just tell you this really fun story. We had this couple that had been working for us doing things like maintenance, cleaning the common areas, stuff like that. They were super hardworking, always went above and beyond. I've never known such hardworking people. It was a husband and wife. So when it came time for us to hire a property manager, we thought, well, why don't we give these people a shot, make them employees of our company? That way we can save a little bit of money and just be more hands-on with the way that they are managing things. So that's what we did. And it was great at first. And then about 6 months in, my husband went to collect rent from the on-site lockbox one day. There was a lot of rent missing. And it was not just the normal tenant paying late, it was a significant amount. So of course, we're trying to call our property managers and they're totally MIA. We never heard from them again. They stole $6,000 in rent money that weekend. And we found out they'd been squatting in vacant rooms and units in our buildings for almost a year. So talk about a big wake-up call, a huge violation of trust, and just definitely a low point in my journey. I mean, we can laugh about it now. But I was naive, I was naive in hiring them. I was thinking we're going to save money, but sometimes when you are that cheap, it ends up costing you so much more in the long run. And that was the moral of the story for me, is that that's not the place to cut corners. When you hire a property manager, you want to find someone that's licensed, bonded, insured, and qualified. Because if we had done that and one of their employees did that to us, they would have been liable for the damages, not us. So it sounds like, to me now, it sounds like such an obvious thing, but I just didn't know better at the time. So I share that so that hopefully other people can learn from my mistakes.
Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of newer investors, especially on the smaller unit counts, think that they can either do it themselves or they try to cut costs, and I think one of the biggest complaints on like real estate forums that I see is how much it costs for property management. But man, they are the most important part of your business. They really are. That's a huge thing. And I've tried managing single family homes from other side of the world before, and it doesn't work well.
I was going to say, and that's what allows it to be passive, is having that property management company in place that can handle that stuff reliably.
Yeah, you'll never be able to scale if you're managing your own apartments.
I'd love to add in another lesson learned, if that's okay, because I have another important one. Okay. Yeah. So, because Liz, I know you mentioned you're looking for ones you can maybe add value to and renovate, especially with your brother's experience. So I think this will be relevant to you guys. We've done a couple renovations on our properties. But one of them was something where the whole thing needed to be renovated. So it's not like it was just one unit and there were other tenants. So there was no one living in the building. The whole thing needed to be renovated. I didn't realize until after the fact that an empty building that's clearly undergoing a renovation is a target. It is a target for people to break into, to damage, to rob you. And so we had closed on a property one week, and it was exactly like this. It was a huge duplex. We were going to renovate the whole thing. It was maybe 2 days later that I got a call from my contractor, and he called me in the morning. He said, "Rachel, I have bad news." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Somebody has broken into the property." Now, just the day before, we had $10,000 to $15,000 worth of brand new appliances delivered to that property. So my gut sank. And so I was like, "Are the appliances still there?" And he said, "Yes, they're still there." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank goodness." These happened to be, they were probably just teenagers. They broke in and they took what they could carry. So they took like the lockbox, they took some of the contractor's tools. And ironically, they took the security system that we had purchased and had not yet installed. So moral of the story is you have to protect your physical assets. And I'm talking, once you leave that closing table, you better have a security system in place. You better have an internet person that's going to come over and hook you up so you can put your security system up. You better have signs and warnings saying this property is under surveillance, because if we had had that in place, that wouldn't have happened. And luckily it wasn't horrible for us, but it could have turned out so much worse. So that was a huge learning lesson for me as well.
Yeah, we have one property that we bought it with a high vacancy. It was like a 55% vacancy or occupancy when we bought it. And a couple of units got broken into, and it was teenagers just wanting to do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they break a window and open the door, and it looks like they just sit in one room on a mattress. But it's something you definitely need to watch out for. Good lesson learned on that one. It's great to learn from others' mistakes. Rachel, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but thank you so much for sharing it. I think a lot of times people hear all the roses, and people make it sound like rainbows and unicorns, but there's ups and downs and a lot of work involved too.
Yeah. And no matter how much you will make mistakes, you will waste your time, you will lose money eventually. It's bound to happen. But I think if you just look at it as a tuition payment, like they robbed me of $1,000 worth of stuff. Well, you know what? I paid $1,000 to learn a very important lesson, and I will never make the same mistake again. So I think like just knowing you're going to make mistakes and how can you learn from them can help you from feeling discouraged.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, something I did, and not everybody does this, but I paid a lot of money for a mentorship program. I've still made mistakes, but I think that's helped me to not make as many mistakes. And I know, Rachel, you're coming up with a program, to help people do it. And I love it. I love that you're so open with it and honest about the mistakes you've made, because that's going to help other people a ton in the future so they don't repeat the same mistakes you've made.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So, well, that's it. We're running out of time here. Let's see, Liz, if you got one more quick question, we can probably fit that in. What do you think?
Yeah, I would love to slide one more in. So what do you think has set you apart from other investors? Because your story, you have a great story, and I'm sure people hearing it think, why can't I do that? Or I would like to have that. What do you think has set you apart from other people?
The thing that I think sets me apart and really sets apart the 1% from the people who want to achieve financial independence and want to invest in real estate, but just don't quite get there, is the ability to execute, the ability to take action. Because sure, we can read books, we can listen to podcasts, we can learn things all day long if we want. But if you don't stop at some point and say, I am prepared, and now I'm going to take this action and implement it, you just won't ever get there. And that's the scariest thing, is deciding to take the first step. But we really need to go from being consumers of information to taking action on information if we want to get anywhere. So that's what I think. Knowledge means nothing without the ability to execute.
I love that.
Great answer. Yeah.
I would have guessed that answer before I asked it. That, like, if I had to think of what your answer would be, I would have guessed that taking action and having the balls to actually move on something, as opposed to just knowing it's a good idea or you want to do it, actually going out and doing it. So I love that.
Yeah, Zig Ziglar has this quote that I love to share. And he said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.
Yeah, that is amazing. Something I love this analogy. It's like you're carrying a torch through the woods, or not a very powerful flashlight. You can only see a couple steps in front of you. What's the best way to see further? Take a couple of steps. You can see 2 or 3 steps in front of you, and if you want to go further, you've got to take those 2 or 3 steps in what you can see to be able to light up the whole path. So, with one flashlight, you can light up an entire path, but it requires you to keep on moving forward. But anyway, I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation. And thank you both so much for your time today. I got one question for both of you. And Rachel, you go first. How can listeners learn more about you?
Well, thank you. Yes, both of my books, Money Honey and Passive Income Aggressive Retirement, are on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and audio. And then again, if anyone just wants to download my Passive Income Starter Kit, that would be a great way to kind of sign up and get in touch with me. So you can grab that at moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus.
All right, awesome. And we'll put links to the books and links to the moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus in the show notes. So anybody who wants it, once again, just go to the show notes, tap it, and there you go. All right, Liz, same question for you. How can people learn more about you?
I can be reached at westmorelandinvestments@gmail.com, or I can also be found on LinkedIn under Liz Benzschawel.
All right. And LinkedIn is where we met each other, first of all, I think. So that's a great place.
Well, I think I was actually tipped off to your meetup through my friend Julie, who's an accredited investor. So
nice.
And then I think we got connected on LinkedIn.
Then LinkedIn. Yeah, it was a meetup first, then LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But great. Yeah. So LinkedIn's a great place. Meetups are a great place, but awesome. All right. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And this has been a fun hour for me.
Yes, it has. Thanks for putting us together, Brian. This was a lot of fun. And good luck to you, Liz. You'll have to keep me posted on your progress.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm definitely interested in your 2022 class too.
Yay. Yeah, I'd love to have you.
Got one already.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.